Again, similar to multiplication, because multiplication and division are very similar, we also have a pattern of what their signs would result in. If I have a positive divided by a positive number, the result's going to be positive. Negative divided by a negative will produce a positive. Positive divided by a negative will produce a negative. And a negative divided by a positive will produce a negative. Let's see this in play. Let's say that I have a negative 8 divided by a 2. So negative divided by a positive, my result's going to be negative, and then 8 divided by 2 is a 4. If I have a negative 3/4 divided by a negative 5/9, negative divided by a negative will produce a positive, so I know it's positive, but I got to do the little flimmy jimmy here. So that's a negative 3/4 multiplied by its inverse, and I can multiply that out. That becomes a negative times a negative, which is a 27 all over a 20. No common factors, so that does not reduce down. Let's imagine I have a 20.8 divided by a negative 4. What might that produce? Positive divided by a negative. Positive divided by a negative produces a negative, and then doing the multiplication there, 4 goes in 20.8. Looks like it goes under 5.2. Then lastly, 0 divided by a negative 7. What's going on with that? 0/7 essentially is just a 0. Now this gives me a great opportunity to help us understand, well, what happens if that one was upside down? Here's a little bit of an aside. So imagine I have negative 7 divided by 0. You've always heard, don't divide by 0. It crashes. It doesn't make sense. All things go crazy when you divide by 0, and you do. So what is this saying? Well, let's look at it in terms of how do we rewrite that as a multiplication problem. So remember that can be written as negative 7 divided by 0. Rewrite it as a multiplication problem, so that's negative 7 times the inverse of 0. 0 doesn't have an inverse. Just doesn't have an inverse. So because of that, negative 7 divided by 0 cannot be done. Can't do that right now. Stay away from it. Run as fast as you can. Anyway, I hope understanding a little bit more of how to divide numbers in a real set of numbers, what happens to their signs.